My name is Jessica Thomas, 28 years old, and until recently I thought my life with my boyfriend Evan Carter was something solid, ordinary maybe, but solid in a way that felt safe. I've never been the woman who needed fireworks every day or a highlight reel lifestyle. Stability always mattered more to me than spectacle. A cozy apartment, a steady job, someone to come home to, simple things that don't flash but don't fade either. Evan was the opposite. He loved flash. He loved image. He loved the idea of leveling up whatever that meant. When we started dating 2 years ago, I thought we balanced each other out. He brought ambition and energy. I brought calm and grounding. He used to say it himself, "Jess, you're the most stable part of my life." I believed him. He moved into my apartment 8 months ago. Completely my choice, I offered. His roommate bailed mid-lease, and I didn't want him scrambling. My name was already on the lease, my furniture filled the place, and frankly, I liked waking up next to him. I covered rent. He insisted on covering groceries and half the utilities instead, saying it made more sense financially because he was trying to invest in his future. I didn't mind. I believed in us. Last Tuesday night, he fell asleep on the couch, halfway through the movie we were watching. Typical Evan conks out mid-plot, then asks me the next morning to recap the last 45 minutes. I smiled, draped a blanket over him, and went to finish up some project notes in the bedroom. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. Around 1 a.m., I stepped out to refill my water. That's when I noticed his phone lighting up on the coffee table. Repeated Reddit notifications. The preview text on one of them stopped me cold. Great advice. You definitely deserve someone who matches your drive. It was the phrasing. Matches your drive. Evan said that same sentence once when we'd argued about buying a newer car. He cared a little too much about appearances, but I chalked it up to insecurity. I shouldn't have looked. I'm not the girlfriend who snoops. Genuinely. I've always believed that if you have to go through someone's phone, the relationship is already broken. But the way my stomach tightened, it felt like a warning. His password was the same as always, his sister's birthday backward. I could have looked away. Should have. But something in me whispered, see the truth. When Reddit opened, everything inside me dropped through the floor. A post 3 hours old, staring at me like a confession left out in the open. My girlfriend 28F isn't good enough for me. Should I leave? My hands went cold. I clicked it, and I started reading. He described me, my life, my habits, my choices, with a precision that left no doubt it was him. I make decent money, but she has zero ambition to climb higher. She's comfortable being average. She drives an old Nissan when she could easily afford better. It's embarrassing. She'd rather stay in and cook than explore new places or network. I'm wasting my prime years on someone content with mediocrity. Meanwhile, my coworker Lena is everything Jessica isn't. I stopped breathing. Lena. I'd heard the name before once. A polished, stylish woman Evan mentioned in passing when talking about office projects. I didn't think anything of it at the time. He continued, she makes me feel like I'm leveling up. Ambitious, classy, drives a BMW. Last week, she took me to lunch, and I felt seen for the first time in months. Lunch. He never told me that. The comments, hundreds of them, were filled with strangers encouraging him. Leave her. You deserve someone who matches your energy. Don't settle for mediocrity. She's dragging you down. Others called me a liability, a weight, a dream killer. And Evan replied to them, clarifying details, confirming judgments, painting me as a burden he'd been too patient with. 2 years together, 8 months living under the same roof, sharing responsibilities, dreams, life. And this is what he really thought of me. I didn't cry. Not then. Shock has a strange way of numbing everything except clarity. I sat there for 20 minutes scrolling through the replies, watching him talk about me like a flawed product he was thinking about returning. I read his comment about the lunch again, how Lena made him feel like a king next to a queen. A queen. Funny. I once thought Evan wanted a partner. Turns out he wanted a mirror to reflect his imagined future back at him. At some point, I stopped reading. I clicked into my own Reddit account, one I barely used, mostly for recipe threads and travel tips. No one would connect it to me. Under his post, I typed, yes, you should leave. Speaking as someone who sounds a lot like your girlfriend, she deserves someone who appreciates her instead of treating stability like it's a flaw. You want someone shiny. Let her find someone kind. I hit send. I didn't wake Evan, didn't shake him, didn't shout, didn't crumble. I simply stood up, walked to the bedroom, and began packing his things. Not frantically, not emotionally, just methodically, like I'd suddenly been hired to remove a stranger's belongings. Clothes, books, grooming products, his sneakers he loved too much, his collectibles from childhood he never told me how to display. 3 hours passed. By morning, 4 large boxes sat neatly stacked by the door. When Evan finally woke up around 9:30 a.m., he stretched groggily, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He wandered into the bedroom with a sheepish smile, expecting a normal Wednesday. "What's with all the baby Jess? What's going on?" I was sitting on the edge of the bed, calm, in a way that scared even me. "You're moving out." His expression flickered confusion, then disbelief. "Wait, what is this, a joke?" I picked up my phone and held it up, showing him the post. The exact title, the exact paragraphs. The comments he'd written while I slept in the next room. The color drained from his face instantly. He looked like a man watching his own reflection shatter. "Jess, I can explain." "You already did," I said quietly. "To hundreds of strangers." He didn't speak. He couldn't. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't rush to make him feel better. The truth stood between us, undeniable. "Your things are packed," I added. "Call your sister. She can help you pick them up." Evan opened his mouth again, but no defense in the world could erase the words he wrote. Not good enough. Mediocre. Embarrassing. Wasting his prime years. Funny. I thought relationships were built on love, but apparently mine was built on comparisons to a woman in a BMW. The silence between us was the cleanest break I'd ever felt. Evan didn't speak at first. His mouth opened, closed, opened again, like someone struggling to find the right page in a script they forgot to rehearse. Then finally a broken whisper. "Jess, please, that post wasn't what it looked like." My voice stayed flat, almost quiet. "Evan, you wrote it. You described me, our life, our arguments, your job, everything. It's exactly what it looks like." He dragged a hand down his face and started pacing, breath uneven. I was venting. "Okay. People vent online all the time. It doesn't mean anything. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Venting," I repeated, "is complaining that your partner forgets to replace the toilet paper. Not announcing to thousands of strangers that your girlfriend is mediocre and holding you back." He winced. The truth hit harder than any shout ever could. "Jess." "Come on," he said, reaching toward me. I was frustrated. Work has been insane. I've had so much pressure lately, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. "You knew how to talk to Reddit," I said. He dropped his hand. "No," he tried again, voice softening, as if he thought gentleness could undo the damage. "Jess, baby. I love you. I don't want to lose you over something stupid. I swear I never meant to hurt you." "You hurt me when you wrote it," I said, "not when I found it." He froze. Then the switch flipped, panic to defensiveness to frustration. "You're overreacting. It was a stupid post online. This is insane." I didn't flinch. "You replied to comments. For hours. You clarified details. You told them Lena makes you feel alive. You told strangers my life is small, that I'm a burden, that being with me is stagnant." His face flushed red. He knew that line was in there. He also knew there was no version of it that made him look good. "You can't just kick me out," he said, voice rising. "I live here." "No, Evan. You stay here. There's a difference. What the lease is in my name. I pay the rent. You insisted groceries and utilities made more sense for you financially. You don't have a legal claim to this apartment." "That's not fair," he shot back. I almost laughed. "Fair you used my apartment as a stable home base while comparing me to a coworker you've known for 4 months." He took a step back, anger and embarrassment battling on his face. "Are you really throwing away 2 years for some words online?" "No," I said. "I'm ending 2 years because those words revealed the way you've always seen me." His jaw clenched. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to argue more, but then something in him collapsed. "Jess." He said it quietly, almost pleading. "Can't we talk about this? I'll delete it. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't do this." "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm leaving a relationship where I'm not valued." He exhaled shakily, eyes darting toward the bedroom where his things sat in boxes. It was sinking in now, the finality. "You're making a mistake," he whispered. "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. He left. The door shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like a full stop at the end of a long sentence. The silence that followed wasn't painful. It was clean. By noon, my phone rang. Evan's mother. Her name flashing across the screen was enough to make my stomach tighten, but I answered anyway. "Jessica." She snapped without preamble. "What did you do to my son?" "He's heartbroken. He says you kicked him out of nowhere. Over nothing." "Nothing," I said. "Is that his word?" "He said you went through his phone, read something private, and overreacted. You know he'd never say the things you're accusing him of." "Ask him to show you the post," I replied. "The real post, not his summary." There was a long pause. "What post?" she whispered. You'll know it when you see it. I hung up. Maybe that was harsh. Maybe it was overdue. 2 hours later, she called again. Her voice was quieter this time, small, dented. Jessica, I read it, she said. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied. It's between me and Evan. But it's over. He said he was frustrated, she said weakly, that he didn't mean it that way. I don't care what he says after being caught. He meant every word when he wrote it. She didn't argue. When she hung up, I realized something unusual. Evan's own mother couldn't defend him. Late afternoon, I heard a soft knock at the door. Not the pounding of someone demanding a fight, something quieter, almost delicate. When I opened it, I kept the safety chain hooked. Evan stood in the hallway, hair messy, eyes red. He didn't look angry now. He looked lost. Jess, can we talk? We did talk this morning. Not enough. I need to explain. You explained everything on Reddit. That's not who I am, he said, voice cracking. I'm better than that. You know I am. I held his gaze. Evan, if that post is who you were in private, that's who you are. He flinched like the sentence hit him physically. You won't try, he whispered. You're just done. Yes. Why? Because I deserve someone who doesn't secretly resent me. His face crumpled for a moment, the closest thing to genuine remorse I had seen from him all day. If he'd shown even a fraction of that honesty before, maybe the ending would have been different. But now I was looking at someone I didn't recognize. He swallowed hard. And goodbye, Jess. I closed the door gently. I listened to his footsteps linger, hesitate, then fade down the hall. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I could breathe again. For 4 days, things were quiet enough that I let myself believe the worst was behind me. I wasn't naive breakups leave debris. But I thought Evan would do what most adults eventually do, accept reality, lick his wounds, move on. Instead, he did something far more predictable. He started lying. It began Monday morning when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Heard you dumped Evan over a private journal entry. That's insane. You're controlling as hell. I stared at the text, exhaled once, and blocked the number. 10 minutes later, another came in. Going through someone's phone is literally abusive. No wonder he was unhappy. Blocked. Then another. He deserves better than someone who spies on him. Blocked, blocked, blocked. I didn't need names to know where they came from. Evan's friends, the ones who worshiped job titles, car brands, and hustle culture like a religion. The ones he desperately wanted validation from. The ones who probably read his post and high-fived him for being honest about dating down. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was tired. It didn't take a genius to figure out the version of the story he told them. I invaded his privacy. I took a harmless vent out of context. I irrationally kicked him out. What he definitely didn't mention was that he wrote a novel-length thread about upgrading to Lena. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And then unexpectedly it rang again, this time with a name I recognized. His sister, Savannah. Savannah was 2 years younger than Evan, infinitely more grounded, and one of the few people in his family I genuinely liked. She always treated me with warmth, curiosity, and a surprising amount of emotional intelligence given the rest of the Carter clan. Her voice was hesitant when I answered. Jessica, hey, do you have a minute? I sighed, sinking onto the couch. Yeah, go ahead. So, she paused. I'm not calling to take sides. Evan's been vague about everything. I can tell there's more to the story. Did he tell you I went through his phone? I asked. He said you violated his privacy. Yes. I didn't. He said I didn't. I repeated calmly but firmly. His notifications were blowing up and the preview text was concerning. I looked because I thought something might be wrong. And what I found wasn't private journaling. It was a fully public post about how I'm not good enough for him. She was silent long enough that I thought the call dropped. Can you tell me what the post said? She finally asked. I told her. Not all of it. Not the humiliating parts about my mediocre life. Just the essentials. The title. The comparison to Lena. The lunch he never mentioned. The strangers he vented to. The things he said about my ambition, my car, my habits. When I finished, Savannah exhaled sharply through her nose. He didn't tell us any of that, she said. He just said you overreacted to something small. That wasn't small, I replied. No, she agreed quietly. It really wasn't. There was a long pause, and I could practically hear her thinking, restructuring everything she believed about her brother in real time. I'm sorry, she said softly. You didn't deserve that, and I'm embarrassed he wrote those things. You don't have to be embarrassed, I said. They're his words, not yours. Still, she murmured, I'm sorry. We said goodbye on good terms, but when the call ended, I felt an unexpected ache, not for Evan, but for his family. I knew this would fracture things for them too, and maybe that shouldn't matter to me anymore. But it did. Later that afternoon, I logged into LinkedIn for work and froze. Someone has viewed your profile, Lena Brooks. Of course she had. Curiosity or guilt? I couldn't tell. Maybe Evan said something. Maybe she recognized my name. Maybe she wanted to see the woman her coworker thought was dragging him down. I clicked her profile. She was exactly how Evan described her ambitious, polished, meticulously curated career path. A picture-perfect corporate success story in a fitted blazer with a practiced smile. But then something in her activity feed caught my eye. A new post. Excited to announce I'm relocating to our East Coast office next month. New chapter, new opportunities, ready for the next big challenge. My eyebrows lifted. Evan's fantasy, the shiny new life he thought she represented, was packing up and moving 100 miles away. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt nothing. That surprised me. Maybe the wound was too raw for emotions. Maybe I was already moving on without realizing it. Maybe I had finally learned the difference between heartbreak and clarity. That night, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone vibrated on the counter. A text from Evan. I know you saw the LinkedIn thing. Go ahead. Say it. I know you want to gloat. I wiped my mouth, picked up the phone, and read it twice. I typed back slowly. I don't follow your coworker on LinkedIn. I'm not tracking your office drama. Why would I? 3 dots appeared instantly. Typing. Stop pretending. You definitely checked. She's moving. The whole thing was stupid anyway. I leaned against the sink, staring at the message. He really thought everything revolved around him. I typed one more time. I'm not pretending. We're not together anymore. What Lena does with her life isn't my concern. There was a long pause before his next message. You're so cold. I let the phone rest in my hand for a moment. Then I responded. There's a difference between cold and healed. He didn't reply after that. I turned off the bathroom light, climbed into bed, and pulled the blanket over myself. The apartment felt quiet, strangely quiet, but there was no ache in the silence this time. Just stillness. Just space. Just the faint sense that something in me had begun stitching itself back together. And I didn't miss him. Not even a little. The week after Evan's late-night text should have been peaceful. I'd blocked a handful of numbers, muted his messages, and resumed the parts of my life that had nothing to do with him, my job, my routines, my friends, who didn't need curated explanations to understand me. For a moment, it felt like the whole storm might finally pass. But lies don't die quietly. They unravel. They rot. And eventually they crawl back toward the person who created them. It started with Savannah again. She texted me on Wednesday afternoon. Hey, can I call something happened? I stepped out onto my balcony, letting the city noise wash over me while I answered. Her voice was tight, hesitant. Evan came over last night. Mom confronted him. I straightened a little. About the post. Yeah. She asked him to show her everything you said he wrote. Savannah exhaled slowly. He tried to summarize instead. You know, picking and choosing. Of course he did. She didn't buy it, she continued. She made him scroll. The whole thing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Savannah said so quietly I almost missed it. I don't think I've ever seen Mom that disappointed in him. I swallowed. I'm sorry this is affecting your family. Don't be, she said firmly. This is on him. And honestly, I think he needed the wake-up call. But she wasn't done. He also told his friends a version of the story that wasn't exactly true. Let me guess, I said. I'm the villain. Well, she admitted he left out the entire Lena part. I almost laughed. Of course he did. He said you blew up at him over a harmless rant, she continued, and that you made up the coworker thing. I didn't make up anything. I know that now. Because when Mom pressed him, he admitted it wasn't just a one-time vent. He'd been comparing you two. Savannah paused, then added, she told him he'd embarrassed himself. I bit my lip. I wasn't sure whether to feel vindicated or simply tired. Mostly tired. Savannah hesitated. Look, I know you don't owe him anything, but thank you for telling me the truth. I'm not taking his side in this. What he did was wrong. Just really wrong. When we hung up, I stood on the balcony for long minutes just breathing. Not crying, not shaking, just letting myself exist in a body that finally felt fully my own again. But the unraveling wasn't done. Not even close. The next day, around lunchtime, one of Evan's former friends, because apparently even his inner circle had limits, messaged me on Instagram. Not to harass me, to apologize. I defended him. I shouldn't have. I saw the post after it got locked. He lied to us. You didn't deserve that. His message wasn't long, but it was honest. And surprisingly, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe justice doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in the quiet collapse of a false narrative. That evening, another ripple hit the surface. This time from the last person I expected. Lena. She didn't message me directly, didn't follow me, didn't even like any of my posts. She just posted something public. A picture at her office farewell party. Captioned, "On to the next chapter. Excited to start fresh on the East Coast. And grateful for the amazing team here and my amazing boyfriend for supporting me through this transition." I blinked. Boyfriend. The comments confirmed that she had been dating someone for months. Someone not Evan. Someone at the new office she was transferring to. She had never flirted with Evan. Never hinted at interest. Never positioned herself as an upgrade. The entire fantasy existed only in Evan's mind and in a Reddit post that detonated his life. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't forward it. I didn't feed the drama. I simply put my phone down and let reality settle like dust after a demolition. The next morning, a knock came at my door. Not the hesitant tap Evan used when he was guilty, not the impatient pounding he used when he was angry. Just a normal knock. I opened it to find my neighbor, Mrs. Kim, holding a small potted plant. "For your space," she said with a smile. "It feels good to refresh energy after someone unpleasant moves out." I blinked. "You knew." She laughed softly. "Thin walls, dear. I didn't hear much, but I heard enough. You're stronger than you think." I thanked her and set the plant on my windowsill, a little green sprout in a white ceramic pot. A reminder that healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor's kindness. Sometimes it looks like a quiet room where no one is resenting you. Sometimes it looks like a plant taking root in a new corner. But Evan wasn't done trying. That night at 2:14 a.m. he sent a long message, paragraphs, walls of text. It started defensive, then melted into guilt, then twisted into self-pity. Classic Evan. Cycling through emotions like channels on a TV he couldn't decide on. He ended with, "I just want to talk. Not to fight, not to get back together. Just talk, please." I read it twice. Then I put the phone face down on my nightstand. I didn't reply. Silence is a language too. He'd have to learn it. By morning he'd sent nothing else. But the unraveling, the way his lies were turning into shrapnel that cut him instead of me, that was still just beginning. A month passed. Not quickly, not painlessly, just steadily, like time had finally stopped holding its breath and started moving again. I didn't hear from Evan for weeks, which I assumed meant he'd finally accepted the breakup and redirected his energy somewhere else. But endings have a way of circling back one last time. It happened at 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday, the hour when grief and clarity blur, when people confess things they'd never say in daylight. My phone buzzed with an email notification. From Evan Carter, subject "I'm sorry." For a moment, I just stared at the screen. A part of me considered ignoring it, but something curiosity closure, maybe both, made me open it. It was long, longer than the Reddit post, longer than every message he'd sent since the day he left. It began with the usual fumbling apology, but then it shifted. This time, he didn't defend himself. He admitted he'd been cruel. He admitted he'd been insecure. He admitted that comparing me to Lena was unfair to both of us. He wrote about how his friends stopped taking his side once they learned the full truth, how Savannah wouldn't speak to him for days, how his mom told him point blank that he'd humiliated himself. He wrote that Lena had never been interested in him, not even a little, that when she mentioned her boyfriend at her farewell party, it was the first time he realized how delusional he'd been. He wrote that he'd been chasing a fantasy version of success, and I had become collateral damage in that chase. That he mistook my stability for stagnation, my contentment for complacency, my simplicity for a lack of ambition. He ended with, "I understand why you left. You were right to. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if we never speak again. And I hope you find someone who deserves the way you loved me." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted him to suffer, but because for the first time I genuinely didn't feel obligated to carry his feelings for him. I let the email sit for 2 days untouched. Then one evening after work, I finally wrote back. "Thank you for acknowledging the truth. I hope you figure out what you actually want from your life, from yourself, from relationships. Because the grass isn't always greener somewhere else. Sometimes the person right beside you is already enough. I'm not angry anymore. But I'm done. Good luck, Evan." That was it. No bitterness, no emotional reenactment, just a quiet period at the end of a very long chapter. He didn't reply, and that silence felt right. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my life in small but meaningful ways. I moved the furniture around, shifted the couch closer to the window, changed the angle of the dining table. Not because I needed a new aesthetic, but because I needed the apartment to stop feeling like a museum of conversations that no longer mattered. I bought new art for the walls, bright abstract pieces, shapes that meant nothing and everything at the same time. I adopted a plant, a trailing pothos, which thrived faster than I expected. Every new leaf felt like a quiet declaration. You're growing too. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd tolerated subtle disrespect for so long, why I'd mistaken criticism for ambition, why I'd let someone else narrate my worth. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You didn't lose someone. You lost an illusion. And you gained clarity. Clarity. Yes, that was the word I couldn't articulate before. Some nights I thought about the Reddit post. Not with anger, just with a detached curiosity, like remembering a show I'd watched long ago. One night I searched for it out of pure impulse. The thread was locked, now archived. His username was deleted. But my comment, the one I wrote as a stranger defending a woman Evan didn't know was me, it was still there, pinned near the top. Yes, you should leave. She deserves better. I didn't smile cruelly. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt free. The version of me who wrote that comment had been hurting, shocked, betrayed. The version of me reading it now had survived all of that. I closed the tab. I turned off my laptop. I made myself a cup of tea and settled into the corner of the couch, my new favorite spot with the city lights stretching beyond the window. The room felt warm, soft, mine. And in that quiet moment, with the plant growing steadily with the air, finally still with the past, finally behind me, I realized something simple and true. I didn't regret leaving. Not for a second. My name is Holly LaMarche, and I am 36 years old. If you had told me 7 years ago that a single sentence could snap something inside a person, a clean, almost peaceful crack, I would have laughed. But that was before I spent nearly a decade listening to another woman's ghost, being invited into my relationship again and again like my boyfriend's past was a measuring tape I was supposed to keep failing against. The 100th time it happened, it wasn't dramatic. There was no shouting, no build-up. Just a quiet comment that sliced deeper because it sounded so casual. Eric looked at the dresser I had spent an hour assembling, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and muttered, "Lila would never have done that." I should have breathed, walked away, counted to 10, anything except what I did. But 7 years of swallowing comparisons, of smiling through the sting, of pretending it didn't bruise something tender inside me. It all rose at once. "Then why didn't you marry her?" I said. Eric froze. He didn't blink. And the silence that followed was heavier than any argument we had ever had. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, confused at first, then insulted as if my pain was inconvenient. Before he could answer, I added, "Because she didn't want you either." The words fell between us like a stone breaking glass. People imagine explosions are loud. They are not. They are quiet. Shockingly quiet. Eric stepped back as if I'd slapped him. "Holly, what is wrong with you?" But that was the question I had been asking myself for years. What was wrong with me that I let this happen? How did I become the woman who smiled politely while her boyfriend compared her to the ex-girlfriend he still clearly worshipped? To understand how we reached this moment, you have to understand the slow erosion. It wasn't one big betrayal, just a steady drip of little ones. Year 1, we were assembling bookshelves. Eric read the instructions aloud with a smug confidence that somehow made him slower, not faster. I was sweating, trying not to snap at the manual written by someone who clearly hated humanity. When the shelf wobbled just slightly, he chuckled and said, "Lila was really handy. She built one of these herself." A harmless comment, right? That's what I told myself. Everyone talks about their past. No big deal. Year 2. I forgot our anniversary reservation. My fault. I mixed up the dates at work, and by the time I called the restaurant, everything was booked. He didn't scold me. He didn't even raise his voice. He just sighed and said Lila never forgot anniversaries. She had this whole color-coded system. I remember laughing awkwardly, apologizing more than he did, because I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. Year 3. I got promoted. A huge step in my career. More hours, more responsibilities, more stress. But I was proud of myself. Eric wasn't angry, but he was disappointed. Lila always knew how to balance work and life, he said. She made time for the people she cared about. He said it as if I didn't care, as if ambition meant lacking love. Year 4. I planned a surprise birthday party for him. Rented a small venue, invited his friends, coordinated with his older sister. The bakery messed up the cake. It leaned a little to the left like it was trying to escape the party. Eric laughed. Lila threw the most perfect 25th birthday party for me. Everything was flawless. I was quiet the entire drive home. He didn't notice. Year 5, he caught a nasty cold. I worked from home for 2 days running soup to him checking his temperature, keeping him comfortable. He was miserable and emotionally short-fused, which I understood. Illness turns even the nicest people into wounded animals. But then through his sniffles, he whispered, "Lila used to read to me when I was sick." It was sweet. As if I should feel guilty for not performing the ritual correctly. Year 6. We renovated the bathroom. Or more accurately, I watched tutorials, bought materials, and tried to save us money by doing most of it myself. The tiles were a bit uneven, barely noticeable, but that was enough. Lila's family had contractors, he said. This would have been done professionally if she were here. No matter what the year or situation, she was always there. This perfect woman, this flawless phantom, this unreachable standard. Eric's ex-girlfriend didn't just live in his past. She lived beside me at the dinner table, in our bedroom, in our fights, in every mistake I made, in everything I wasn't. He didn't summon Lila to hurt me, he said. That was just how he talked. Just venting. Just memories. Just harmless. But memories can be weapons too. I tried talking to him so many times. Eric, it hurts when you compare me to her. He would sigh, promise to do better, kiss my forehead. 2 weeks later, he'd say something like, "Lila used to massage my shoulders when I was stressed," without me even asking. His friends noticed once. My closest friend pulled me aside after a barbecue and whispered, "Holly, this is not normal. He's disrespecting you." I made excuses. He doesn't mean it that way. He's just processing the breakup still. Except he wasn't processing it. He was preserving it, like a shrine. By year 7, I wasn't sure if I was dating Eric or auditioning to be Lila. And then came the night everything unraveled, the night I cooked pasta. It wasn't fancy, just something warm after a long day. He took 3 bites, set his fork down gently, and said, "It's good, but Lila made this amazing carbonara, like restaurant quality." Something inside me, quiet, stretched thin, fraying for years, finally snapped. "Then why didn't you marry her?" His eyes widened. And before he could respond, I drove the final nail into the coffin, because she didn't want you either. The silence afterward was absolute. Shock, hurt, anger. Then a colder, more dangerous fury I had never seen from him. "Holly, how dare you?" "How dare I state a fact," I said. "You've thrown this woman in my face for 7 years. 7. And I'm supposed to pretend it doesn't hurt, that it doesn't make me feel like I'm second choice." "You're disgusting," he said. "Obsessed with a woman who didn't want me." "No," I whispered. "You're the one obsessed. I've just been forced to live with it." He grabbed his keys, slammed the door, hard enough to rattle the windows, and left me alone with the pasta he refused to eat. Pasta that had taken me an hour to make. I sat there knowing something fundamental had shifted. I thought the question was whether I had ended the relationship. I didn't know yet that the real ending had already begun long before I spoke. I did not hear from Eric for the rest of the night. Not a call, not a text. The kind of silence that doesn't leave room for hope or fear, just a numb space where something used to live. I went to bed without turning off the kitchen lights too drained to care if the electricity bill spiked. Somewhere between midnight and 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A single message. "Staying at Mom's. You need to think about what you said and apologize. I won't come back until you do. No good night. No we should talk." Just an instruction as if I were a misbehaving employee. I stared at the screen for nearly a full minute. Then I set the phone down and rolled over. Not because I wanted to sleep, but because I genuinely had nothing to reply. I wasn't sorry. Not even a little. 7 years of being compared to Lila had drained me so completely that even guilt couldn't find a place to settle. By morning, the message still sat there unanswered. My chest felt cold but light, an unfamiliar contradiction, like grief and relief had agreed to share space. I showered, made coffee, sat in silence. An hour later, my phone rang. His sister. Of all the people I wanted to hear from, she ranked dead last. "Holly," she said immediately, skipping any greeting. "What exactly is going on?" "Good morning to you too," I replied, forcing calmness into my voice. "Don't be cute. Eric is devastated. He was up all night crying. How could you say something so cruel to him?" I inhaled slowly. I knew this woman. She had never liked me, not even in the beginning. In her eyes, no one was ever good enough for the golden son she adored. "Did he tell you what he said to me?" I asked. "He mentioned some comment about his ex. But come on, that's just venting. You're supposed to handle that." "Handle," I repeated. As an absorbed 7 years of being compared to another woman, she clicked her tongue. You're twisting it. Eric loves you. Loving someone doesn't give you the right to humiliate them repeatedly. That's your interpretation. You didn't need to go for the jugular. You should apologize. Be the bigger person. She said it so effortlessly, as if my feelings were a minor inconvenience. I'll think about it, I said. And I did for exactly 0 seconds after hanging up. The next day, his father called. This man had spoken maybe 100 words to me in 7 years. He wasn't unkind, just quiet, observing everything from the background like someone who preferred to be uninvolved. That made it worse now because if he was calling, it meant Eric had spun a version of the story carefully curated for sympathy. Holly, he said gently, I don't know what happened, but my son is hurting. Whatever you did, you need to make it right. With respect, sir, I replied, whatever Eric told you isn't the whole story. He said you attacked him verbally. You brought up things designed to wound him. And did he tell you he's been comparing me to Lila for our entire relationship? Every year, every fight, every mistake. Did he tell you that? Silence. Then, that's between you two. But a woman shouldn't speak to her partner that way. A partner shouldn't treat someone like a silver medal for 7 years. He hung up without another word. By day 3, I stopped jumping when my phone buzzed. My body had already learned the rhythm. Someone calls, blames me, defends Eric, scolds me for not apologizing. It was almost predictable. What wasn't predictable was what I found when I got home from work. Eric, sitting on the couch. No warning, no message. Just him, perched stiffly, arms crossed, eyes sharp. We need to talk, he said. There was no hello, no acknowledgement of the 3 days of silence he had inflicted. Okay, I replied, keeping my voice steady. He stood pacing once before turning sharply toward me. What you said was unacceptable, cruel. You know how insecure that breakup made me, and you used it against me. I blinked, hard. And comparing me to your ex-girlfriend for 7 years wasn't cruel. That's different. How? I wasn't trying to hurt you, he insisted. I was just talking. Talking, I repeated, letting the word fall flat. Eric, you weren't just talking. You were reminding me every time that I wasn't as good as her, that I was a backup plan. You're being dramatic. The laugh that burst out of me shocked both of us. Dramatic, I echoed. Eric, you bring up Lila when I cook, when I forget something. When I'm tired, when I breathe wrong, apparently. But I'm dramatic. She was important to me, he said almost defensively. That relationship shaped who I am. Then go be with her. I can't. Why, I asked. He hesitated for the first time. And that was when his eyes flickered in the way people's eyes do when they are deciding whether to lie or confess. She and we've been talking. Just as friends. We reconnected on social media a few months ago. My stomach turned to stone. Define talking. Just catching up. Nothing happened. Show me the messages, I said. His hand shot to his pocket, instantly gripping his phone so tightly he might have left fingerprints embedded in the case. That's an invasion of privacy. You've been secretly talking to the woman you compare me to constantly, I said softly. Deadly calm, and I'm the one invading privacy. I don't have to prove anything to you, he snapped. You're not my warden. I thought I was your girlfriend, I said quietly, but apparently not. He didn't show me the messages. He didn't need to. The refusal told me everything. That night I slept in the guest room, not because he asked, but because the idea of being near him made something inside me recoil. The next morning I woke up with an eerie clarity. No tears, no shaking, just a cold understanding. I picked up my phone, searched for a local attorney, and made a consultation appointment not to file anything yet, but to understand what my life would look like if I walked away. Because deep in my gut, I already knew Eric wasn't going to change. He couldn't even see the problem. And people who can't see what they're doing can't stop doing it. I didn't plan for the truth to fall into my lap. I wasn't digging, wasn't reading his messages, wasn't hunting for evidence to justify the heaviness in my chest. I didn't have to. The truth came to me because someone else finally grew tired of Eric too. It started with an unexpected call from his sister. Her voice was sharp, clipped, irritated. Not unusual, but different. Less righteous than before, more agitated. Holly, she said, we need to talk. I braced myself. More yelling, more blaming, more, you need to fix this. But that wasn't what I got. I'm only telling you this because I'm furious with Eric right now, she snapped. But you should know he wasn't being honest about the whole Lila situation. My pulse slowed, not sped up. Some part of me had been preparing for this. What do you mean? I asked calmly. He wasn't just talking to her, a bitter laugh. He's been bragging about it, saying she finally realized what she lost, saying she's practically begging to meet up. The room tilted slightly, not from shock, but from confirmation. The truth wasn't a surprise. It was simply a puzzle piece sliding into place. Did he meet her? I asked. Another pause. He told me he wasn't sure if he should tell you. But yes, 3 weeks ago, coffee. Just the two of them. The same week he told me he was working late. The same week he kissed my forehead, told me I worried too much. The same week he compared my spaghetti to Lila's perfect carbonara again. I exhaled, slowly. Thank you for telling me. Don't thank me, she muttered. I'm mad at him not helping you. And don't tell him I said anything. She hung up. That night, the weight inside me shifted, not heavier, but more solid. A truth with edges sharp enough to cut through denial. And then came the second call. Eric's mother. This woman had always been measured with me. Polite, observant, careful not to interfere. So hearing her voice tremble slightly instantly put me on alert. Holly, I need you to listen without reacting. I closed my eyes. I'm listening. I know about the messages, she said quietly, and the coffee meeting. Her tone wasn't accusatory or angry. It was apologetic. He told his sister things he shouldn't have, she continued, and she told me. I confronted him. He got defensive. He blocked me for a week. Eric blocked his own mother. That told me more than anything else. I'm not excusing what he did, she said, but I refuse to let you be blindsided. Whatever choice you make, it should be an informed one. Did anything happen, I asked, though the answer no longer mattered. I don't know, she said truthfully, but he told his sister he wanted to see if there was still something there. Something inside me went very still. Not shattered, not devastated, just still. Stillness is powerful. It is clarity disguised as numbness. When the call ended, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't even pace the room. I simply picked up my phone, opened the lawyer's number I had saved, and said, I'd like to move forward. The papers were drafted in silence, signed in silence, processed in silence. That same afternoon, they were served to Eric at his mother's house, witnesses present, just as the attorney recommended. The moment they were delivered, my phone lit up like something possessed. First call, Eric. Second, Eric again. Third, unknown number, his cousin. Fourth, his sister. Fifth, his father. Sixth, Eric. I ignored all of them. Eventually, I listened to the first voicemail. Eric's voice was jagged, frantic. Holly, you're divorcing me over coffee. You're ending 7 years because I had a conversation. I pressed delete. Next voicemail, his father. You are throwing away a family. Real women work through problems they don't run. Delete. Then came the cousin. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Delete. Finally, a text from Eric. Please talk to me. Please. Don't do this. You're overreacting. Nothing happened. Overreacting. The same word he'd used when I cried over his comparisons. The same word he used when I asked him to stop bringing up Lila. The same word that turned my pain into inconvenience. I did not respond. 2 days later, Eric escalated from messages to theatrics. I walked out of my office for lunch and froze. He was leaning against his car in the parking lot, arms crossed, eyes red. He pushed off the door when he saw me. We need to talk. I stayed where I was. Everything goes through the lawyers now. Holly, stop. I'm trying to save us. You should have thought about us before meeting your ex behind my back. He moved closer, too close. His voice cracked. You won't answer my calls. You won't text me back. What am I supposed to do? Accept the divorce. He flinched like I'd physically hit him. 7 years, Holly. We can fix this. You spent 7 years telling me I wasn't enough, I said softly. Then you went looking for someone better. And now that she didn't want you, you want me again. That's not fair. None of this is fair. But it is reality. He reached for my arm. I pulled back. People were starting to stare. Holly, please, he whispered. I shook my head. You want forgiveness, but you don't even understand what you did. I turned and walked away. In the elevator alone, I finally felt the tremble in my fingers. But it wasn't from sadness. It was from release. Eric expected me to crumble, to apologize through tears, to cling to him so he could feel wanted after Lila rejected him. But he didn't understand something crucial. You cannot break a woman who has already lived in pieces for years. You can only free her. And I was finally free. The legal process was not dramatic at first. It was paperwork, endless, numbing paperwork. Forms, financial statements, itemized lists of assets and responsibilities, cold documents that reduced 7 years of my life into categories: property, income, contributions, liabilities. But then Eric turned it into war. The first sign came during a call with my lawyer. She sighed, tapping her pen against the desk. Holly, his attorney, just filed his initial demands. Demands, I repeated, though I already suspected. Yes, he's asking for quite a lot. Of course he was. Eric had always been a man who felt wronged whenever reality contradicted his expectations. What exactly is he asking for? I asked. My lawyer read the list with the tone of someone who didn't know whether to scoff or pity. First, he wants your house. The house I bought before I ever met him. The house I renovated with my own money. The house he once said had weird windows, but was good enough for now. He claims my lawyer continued that because he lived there for 7 years and contributed to utilities and groceries he deserves a portion, possibly full ownership. I let out a slow, controlled exhale. Utilities. Groceries. I almost laughed. But not the down payment. Not the mortgage. Not the insurance. Not the remodels. Exactly, she said. He has no legal standing. This is a scare tactic. We moved down the list. Second alimony. Significant alimony. Eric earned a good income, a stable job, 2 promotions. But according to him, he had sacrificed career growth for the relationship, a fictional history he created for court. My lawyer raised a brow. He's asking for 4 years of monthly support. I closed my eyes. Of course he is. Third half-year retirement account accumulated during the marriage. That one, unfortunately, was standard. Painful, but expected. And fourth, she hesitated, flipping the paper as if hoping she misread it. He wants the dog. I opened my eyes. He wants Luna. Yes, Luna the Beagle mix. We adopted in year 3. Luna, who slept on my side of the bed. Luna, who Eric complained, shayed too much, and barked too often. Luna, who clung to me whenever Eric raised his voice. He barely cared for her, I said quietly. My lawyer nodded. We have every vet record, every food receipt, every grooming bill in your name. He'll lose that argument fast. But the fact that he tried, that he reached for the one creature who had brought me peace, that said everything. Eric wasn't fighting because he wanted these things. He was fighting because he wanted to punish me. Because losing control terrified him. Because if he couldn't have me, he wanted to take pieces of my life instead. The weeks that followed were a blur of hearings, filings, evaluations, and strategy meetings. Eric oscillated between rage and desperation, his messages veering from insults to pleading. His family was worse. His father sent a formal letter through his attorney threatening to make this difficult if I didn't give his son what he deserved. He did not specify what that meant. The ambiguity was intentional. My lawyer pen-clicked through the letter, unimpressed. This borders on harassment. If they push this angle, we'll shut it down. His sister texted paragraphs and paragraphs, essay-length attacks, calling me weak, selfish, cold-hearted, emotionally unstable. No wonder he looked elsewhere, she wrote, as if cheating were a justified consequence of my inability to be Lila. His cousin called me from a number I didn't recognize. I'm just telling you, you're making a huge mistake. Eric is crushed. People make mistakes. You're overreacting. Blocked. Eric's mother, however, said nothing. Not another call, not another message, silence. A silence I understood as quiet disapproval, not of me, but of her son. When the first hearing came, Eric sat across the room from me, jaw clenched, eyes flickering between anger and pleading. His attorney argued aggressively emotional sacrifice, long-term, partnership, codependence, lifestyle expectations. My lawyer calmly dismantled every point with documentation. Mortgage records mine, down payment mine, property ownership. Established years before the relationship, financial contributions. Split household expenses. Nothing else. Career sacrifices, none. He actually advanced during the relationship. Dog ownership. Evidence overwhelmingly in my name. Eric's face cracked when the judge dismissed his claim to the house. His expression broke further when the judge ruled the alimony request excessive and unsupported. The final order, 18 months of small transitional support, a division of the retirement funds accumulated only during the relationship. Luna stays with me. The house remains entirely mine. It was more than fair. It was merciful even. But Eric looked like someone had carved open his world. When the judge adjourned, he didn't look at me. His attorney patted his shoulder, whispering something. Eric's hands shook. I watched him leave. Not triumphant, not vengeful, just sad. Sad for what we became. Sad for what he threw away. Sad for what I had to do to protect myself. The final hearing was brief. Signatures, stamped documents, a handshake from my lawyer, a nod from the judge. 7 years distilled into a final decree. Walking out of that courthouse, I braced myself for a wave of grief. But the grief didn't come. What came was a strange foreign lightness. Not happiness. Divorce doesn't make you happy. but ease, relief. The sense that I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. I thought that was the end. But the story wasn't finished. A week later, a mutual acquaintance texted me, "You're not going to believe this." Attached was a screenshot from social media. Lila, newly engaged, not to Eric, to someone she'd been dating for a year. Eric had reached out to her after I filed, told her he was divorcing, told her he'd made a mistake, told her they should try again. She turned him down gently publicly, even congratulating him on finding closure. He had destroyed our relationship trying to resurrect something that never wanted to be reborn. And now he was left alone, chasing a woman who had moved on long before he realized he couldn't. It should have felt triumphant. It didn't. It felt quiet, inevitable, a sad end to a sad pattern. A few days later, I made pasta again. The same recipe he once compared to Lila's. I lifted the first bite to my lips, bracing instinctively for criticism, then remembered there was no one to deliver it. The pasta tasted better than ever. Not perfect, not restaurant quality, just mine. And for the first time in years, that was enough. I used to think quiet mornings were sacred, the one time of day when life felt predictable, gentle, almost safe. I didn't know that a single sentence over breakfast could gut an entire future. My name is Sherry Hagley. I'm 29, and until last Thursday, I genuinely believed I was building a life with my boyfriend Marcus Hale. 3 years together, 18 months living under the same roof, long talks about rings and starter homes. It all felt steady, real. In the way you only dare to believe when you finally found someone who doesn't play games. Or so I thought. That morning, I was plating scrambled eggs when Marcus cleared his throat. It wasn't the thoughtful kind. It was the kind people use right before saying something they know will hurt. "Sherry, we need to talk." I turned spatula in hand, already feeling something cold snake through my ribs. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice light. He exhaled dramatically, like the weight of our entire relationship was crushing him. "You're boring, Sherry." I blinked. "I'm what?" "Boring," he repeated more confidently the second time. "I need someone more exciting. Someone who actually wants to live a little, like Jocelyn." There it was, the name that had been creeping into his vocabulary lately, like a stain. Jocelyn Hart. 31. A new friend from his yoga studio. Trust fund baby lover of glittering nights and expensive spontaneity. She floated through life on champagne bubbles and people's money. The 2 times I met her, she looked at me the same way someone looks at an outdated phone, functional but unimpressive. I swallowed. "So, you're breaking up with me." "For her," Marcus rolled his eyes. "Not for her. She just made me realize what's missing. I need adventure, not meal prepping and documentary nights." The spatula in my hand suddenly felt heavy. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him how cruel he was being. Instead, something inside me went eerily calm. "I understand," I said quietly. He froze, clearly expecting a meltdown. "That's it. No fight, no begging." "You've made your decision," I replied. "When are you moving out?" Marcus frowned, like I had just broken some unspoken script. "Oh, I'm not moving. This is my apartment too. Remember, I thought you'd leave. Jocelyn said I can crash at her penthouse anytime I need a break from..." He gestured around at our modest apartment. "This." That sting should have broken me. Instead, it woke something up, something sharper. He didn't know he had forgotten that our joint savings account was equally accessible by either of us. $22,000 saved for a future we apparently no longer had. So I smiled. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll figure something out." He looked pleased, even smug, like he'd just done me a favor by discarding me. When he left for work, humming to himself, I stood there in the silence he'd hollowed out. My hands trembled, but not from heartbreak, from clarity. By noon, I had called in sick. By 12:30, I was sitting across from a bank teller who slid a withdrawal slip toward me. $11,000, my exact half. Legal, clean, no drama. By 2 p.m., a new apartment was secured, a tiny but warm studio. $4,500 down for deposits and first month's rent. Worth every penny for the peace of knowing Marcus would never again use boring like a blade against me. By 5, I was packing everything I owned into boxes, clothes, documents, the pieces of myself Marcus never bothered to notice. He texted around lunchtime. "Thanks for being mature about this. Jocelyn's taking me to Cabo next week, so excited." I replied with 2 words, "Enjoy it." That night, he stayed with Jocelyn in her shimmering penthouse world. I stayed our home for now, loading my car until exhaustion became my shield. Right before midnight, I placed my apartment key on the counter with a small, handwritten note. "All yours now. Good luck with the adventure." The next morning, I drove away as sunlight hit the empty parking lot. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something deep inside whispered a warning. Marcus didn't hear a quiet foreshadowing. Adventure always comes with a cost, and Marcus was about to pay it. I thought leaving the key on the counter would be the end of things, a clean break. A quiet exit, no theatrics. I underestimated Marcus. Or maybe I just overestimated his ability to live with the consequences of the life he was so desperate to chase. By Monday afternoon, my phone lit up like it was possessed. 62 missed calls, all from Marcus, followed by an avalanche of voicemails, each one more frantic, furious, or pathetic than the last. I sat in my new studio apartment, the walls still smelling like fresh paint, listening to each message with the detached curiosity of someone watching a documentary about a species she no longer belonged to. Voicemail 1, confusion. Sherry. Hey, weird thing. The rent check bounced. There's like $30-something in the account. Did you move money? Call me back. Voicemail 3, anger. Sherry, what the hell? You took half the savings. That was our money for our future. You can't just do that. I'll call the police if I have to. Voicemail 6, panic. I talked to the bank. They said it's legal, but that can't be right. You owe me that money. I have bills, Sherry. I can't do this alone. Voicemail 9, blame Jocelyn isn't answering her phone. She said Cabo was taken care of. Now she's ghosting me. This is your fault somehow. I paused the playback and let silence fill the room again. There it was. Not remorse, not reflection, not even a hint of understanding. Just entitlement. Pure, unfiltered entitlement. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. By late afternoon, the desperation evolved into emotional theatrics. Voicemail 14, pleading. Please, Sherry. I can't afford this place alone. Be reasonable. This isn't fair. Fair. A word Marcus had never cared about until it applied to him. I texted him once, just once, because some things deserve clarity. You wanted excitement. Figuring out adulthood solo should be quite the adventure. Then I blocked his number. One tap, and the noise went silent. Unfortunately, silence didn't last. 5 minutes later, a call came from a different number. His sister Lila. I answered because I didn't recognize it, and regretted it instantly. Sherry, how could you leave Marcus with nothing? She snapped before I even breathed. I left him with exactly what he had before me, and before Jocelyn, I replied calmly. So you admit you abandoned him. I moved out. I didn't abandon him. You took all the money. I took my half. Marcus already took his a month ago. A beat of silence. She didn't know. She launched into a tirade anyway, calling me selfish, cruel, vindictive. I blocked her mid-sentence. His mother called next, then his best friend, then a coworker I'd never even spoken to. All with the same chorus, how could you, poor Marcus? He's struggling. Do the right thing. It was almost impressive how quickly they turned him into a martyr. By evening, the situation escalated from chaotic to surreal. I got a notification Marcus had tagged me in an Instagram post. His caption read like a public tantrum. When you think someone loves you, but they turn into a financial abuser, this woman stole from our joint account and left me homeless. Beware. People aren't who they seem. He circled my face in red like I was a wanted criminal. The comments section exploded instantly. Half the commenters were ready to burn me at the stake. The other half asked why a grown man couldn't afford his own rent if he was so independent. Someone even posted, "Wait, didn't you brag about going to Cabo with that rich yoga girl? What happened?" Marcus deleted the post within an hour. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't need to. He was unraveling in real time and publicly. But the thing that made me pause wasn't the meltdown or the blame or even the lies. It was how quickly the world he traded me for was crumbling beneath him. Adventure, I thought. He wanted adventure, and adventure had finally answered back. By Tuesday morning, the chaos reached a new level, the kind of absurdity you'd expect from a courtroom comedy, not from a man who once swore he wanted to grow old with me. A letter arrived at my new apartment complex. Thin envelope, cheap paper, no return address. Inside, small claims court filing. Plaintiff Marcus Hale. He was suing me for $11,000 stolen funds, $2,400 in rent for the next 3 months, $5,000 in emotional distress, and I almost choked $600 for the Cabo trip he couldn't take because of my financial abuse. Total $19,000. I laughed, out loud. It echoed off the bare walls of my studio like something unhinged. I hadn't expected closure from Marcus, but I also hadn't expected him to weaponize his own irresponsibility into legal paperwork. I scheduled a consultation with an actual attorney, a calm, silver-haired man named Mr. Dawes, who read the papers twice and snorted. Who drafted this, he asked. A paralegal service. Ah, yes. The legal equivalent of YouTube tutorials. He wrote a response letter so cold, so precise, so mercilessly factual that even I winced. Ms. Higley withdrew her rightful 50% of a joint account, fully legal under state law. Mr. Hale is jointly liable for the lease and remains so, regardless of relationship status. The claimed emotional distress appears to stem from self-inflicted choices. The missed vacation is not actionable. We advise immediate withdrawal of these frivolous claims, or we will countersue for fees and harassment. I paid him $300. Best money I have ever spent. By Thursday, the court alerted me Marcus withdrew his case, but he wasn't done falling. The lockout. That night around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed, not a call, but a notification from the security camera app attached to the building's intercom. Marcus, standing outside my door swaying, eyes glossy, hair messy, shirt wrinkled. He looked small, like a child who had lost his mother in a grocery store. Sherry, he slurred into the speaker, open up, please. I pressed the intercom button. Marcus, you can't be here. His voice cracked. I messed up. Jocelyn's a nightmare. She kicked me out, said I was killing the vibe. Sherry, I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem. It is. You took the money. I took my money. You abandoned me. You left the relationship, I said, steady as steel. You left us. He covered his face with his hands. They changed the locks. I'm 3 days late on rent. I don't even know if that's legal. It is illegal, I said flatly, but I'm not giving you legal advice. Or a place to stay. Please. A quiet, desperate sob. I can't call my mom. She said she's done. Lila blocked me. Jocelyn. Jocelyn replaced me with some finance guy already. I need someone. The silence stretched. For a moment, I almost opened the door. A reflex from loving someone too long. A flicker of old instincts. Then I remembered his voice that morning at breakfast. You're boring. I need someone exciting. I figured you'd leave. I exhaled, letting those words harden into armor. There's a shelter on 5th Street, I said. They take walk-ins. Sherry, please. I hung up. The intercom buzzed 3 more times before a neighbor called the police about a disturbance. They escorted him away, not arrested, just redirected. Marcus didn't look back at the camera. The truth comes out. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Marcus's mother, from a different number. Sherry, please don't hang up. Deep sigh. What is it, Mrs. Hale? Marcus is staying with me now. He knows he made terrible mistakes. He's working 2 jobs to save for a deposit. Would you consider giving him another chance? No. He's miserable, Sherry. Haven't you punished him enough? I didn't punish him. I removed myself from a situation he created. She hesitated, then added softly, You had the joint savings. Couldn't you help him? Just a little. He's welcome to the $11,000 he contributed. Oh, thank God. Except he already withdrew his half. I let the next words drop like lead. Last month, for Jocelyn's birthday yacht party. Her breath caught. He told you I took all the money, didn't he? Silence. He leaves out a lot of parts, she said quietly. That's something you and I finally agree on. She hung up. Nay. Over the next week, Marcus went quiet. No calls, no posts, no rants from his family. Just silence, the kind that comes after a storm destroys everything it touches. And somehow I knew. This wasn't rock bottom for him yet. He still had further to fall. Rock bottom doesn't always come with explosions. Sometimes it's quiet, almost cinematic, arriving under dull grocery store lighting between shelves of pasta and frozen vegetables. But Marcus's fall didn't happen all at once. It came in fragments, each one sharper than the last. It was late afternoon when I ran into Jenna at Trader Joe's. She was holding a small basket of lemons and almond milk, her hair pulled back like someone who had given up on impressing the world that day. When she saw me, her smile faltered, the kind of expression people make when they suddenly remember they misjudged you. Sherry, she said softly. Hey. I nodded politely. Hi, Jenna. How are you? She asked, shifting the basket nervously in her hands. I'm good, I replied. You. She let out a shaky breath. Fine. Actually, look, I owe you an apology. I raised an eyebrow. I was wrong, she said, voice trembling with truth she'd clearly rehearsed. Marcus lied to us, to all of us. He didn't tell anyone he'd already taken his half of the savings for Jocelyn's stupid birthday yacht party. He made it sound like you drained the whole account and left him with nothing. He said you abandoned him out of nowhere. Her eyes glistened with embarrassment. I shouldn't have judged you. I'm sorry. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel vindicated, just a deep, exhausted quiet. Before she turned away, she added, "He's not doing well, living with his mom, working double shifts. Jocelyn's group calls him Budget Marcus now. He's basically been blacklisted from everything he left you for." I didn't reply. What was there left to say? 2 nights later, I heard a soft, uncertain knock on my apartment door. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps more. It was too familiar, like the echo of a past life trying to crawl back in. Through the peephole, I saw him. Marcus. He looked nothing like the man who once lectured me about excitement. His shoulders sagged, his eyes dull and exhausted, his clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them. I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. "Hi," he murmured. "You can't be here, Marcus." "I know," he whispered. Please, 2 minutes." I didn't let him inside, but I didn't close the door either. He stared at the ground, rubbing the back of his neck, as if steadying himself. "I messed up," he said, voice shaking. "Completely. And I know I don't deserve your time, but I needed to say it." He inhaled shakily. "I ruined everything, Sherry. What we had. Our home. Our future. I threw it away for parties that couldn't care less if I existed unless I was paying for something." His laugh was hollow, painful. "You know what Jocelyn's friends call me now? Budget Marcus. If I show up without offering to pay for bottles or trips or anything expensive, they suddenly have other plans. I thought I needed excitement, but what I actually needed was something that felt real. Something you gave me every day." He swallowed hard. "You weren't boring. You were safe. And I treated safe like it was some prison. But it was the only time in my life I wasn't completely lost." His eyes shined as he fought back emotion. "I'm not asking for another chance. I know I burned that bridge to ash. I just wanted you to know I see it now. Everything you did for us. Everything I took for granted." I nodded once. "Okay." He waited, hoping maybe for forgiveness or a flicker of old warmth. But all I felt was stillness. A calm, unshakable nothingness. The kind of emotional neutrality that comes only after you've survived the worst and realized it didn't break you. "Goodbye, Marcus," I said. He nodded, stepped back and turned down the hallway, his silhouette shrinking under the flickering fluorescent lights. I watched him until he disappeared around the corner, then closed the door gently. I had barely turned off the hall light when my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. The message preview flashed just long enough to show a name I hadn't expected. Jocelyn. "Hey, Sherry. Weird question is, Marcus always this dramatic about money. He keeps asking to borrow like $50 here and there, and it's getting super awkward. Anyway, you dodged a bullet. Drink sometime." For a moment, all I could do was stare at the screen. Then I deleted the message, blocked the number, and went on with my night. Their world, the one Marcus threw away everything to join, was made of glitter and smoke. Beautiful from a distance, suffocating up close. And watching it crumble around them didn't feel satisfying. It felt irrelevant. Because in that moment, standing alone in my quiet apartment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurting. I wasn't even nostalgic. I was free. The funny thing about healing is that it rarely announces itself. There's no triumphant music, no cinematic swell, no dramatic sunrise where everything finally makes sense. Sometimes healing slips in quietly like a guest who doesn't want to disturb you. You only realize it's there when you catch yourself breathing easier. That's what happened to me. It didn't start with revenge or closure or any grand moment of reckoning. It started with a text from Nathan, the guy who lived 2 floors down and once asked me to spot him at the apartment gym. "Coffee on Saturday, no pressure," he wrote. I said yes. Our first date wasn't flashy, no rooftop bars, no luxury yachts, no curated photo ops. Just a tiny cafe with good cappuccinos and mismatched chairs. Nathan listened when I talked. Really listened. He laughed like he meant it. And when we walked home afterward, his hand brushed mine gently, not possessive, not demanding, just a quiet invitation. It felt safe. And safe, I realized, was not the enemy. Safe was what kept you from losing yourself. I was cooking dinner a week later, salmon and asparagus with lemon butter, when an email notification appeared on my laptop. Subject: "Please read from Marcus Hale." I froze for a second. Part of me considered deleting it unread, but curiosity, or maybe a desire for final clarity, won out. I opened it. Sherry. My therapist said writing this might help me accept things. She told me not to send it, but I think you deserve the truth. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing because I finally understand the damage I caused to us, to myself, to the life I threw away without thinking. He wrote about Jocelyn's world, how it sparkled on the surface but felt hollow underneath, how he'd chased the feeling of being chosen by her only to discover he was just another accessory, how he'd misread luxury for love, attention for affection, excitement for fulfillment. I thought excitement meant happiness. Turns out it only meant exhaustion. The last few months have humbled me, Sherry. I take the bus. I work double shifts. I can barely cover rent at my mom's place. Jocelyn's friends call me Budget Marcus when they see me. I'm the joke of the group I tried so hard to belong to. He admitted the truth about our savings, how he'd taken his half early, how he'd manipulated the narrative to make me look like the villain, how he had convinced himself that he deserved more without realizing he was giving up everything that had ever grounded him. You weren't boring. You were steady. You were good in a world that feeds on chaos, and I was too immature to see the value in that. I won't ask you to respond or forgive me. I just needed you to know I see it now, all of it. The good you gave me, the damage I caused, and the life I threw away because I thought I was entitled to something shinier. At the end, he added one small line, P.S. If you ever want your sweatshirt or the mug I bought you as a joke, I still have them. I wear the sweatshirt sometimes. It makes me feel like I didn't ruin everything. The email left me with a strange ache, not love, not longing, not even anger, just closure. 2 days later, a Venmo notification popped up on my phone. Marcus Hale sent you $50 first installment. I'll pay back everything I withdrew early. I stared at the message for a long moment. Nathan wandered into the kitchen, slicing an apple. Your ex? He asked gently. Yeah, I said. He's paying me back. Nathan nodded slowly. Good for him. Growth is still growth. No jealousy, no suspicion, just calm acceptance. This, I thought, is what grown love looks like. A few days later, Jenna texted me again. Marcus was promoted to shift supervisor. It's small, but he's rebuilding. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply, but I smiled faintly, not for him, but for the person he might someday become. Life kept moving. Nathan and I spent Saturdays at the farmer's market experimenting with homemade ramen and arguing playfully about which documentaries were overrated. My little studio apartment started to feel cozy instead of temporary, warm instead of lonely. And one night while washing dishes, something occurred to me. Marcus wasn't wrong when he called me boring. I am boring. Predictable, stable, responsible, deeply, beautifully boring. And boring, it turned out, was what paid my bills. Boring protected my future. Boring walked away from chaos instead of clinging to it. Boring rebuilt a life that someone else threw away. Boring healed. Meanwhile, the exciting life Marcus chased had burned him down to ashes. Good. He needed those ashes to start again. As for me, I'd finally learned something Marcus never understood. Peace is the greatest thrill there is.